Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So we are going to do a weekend review, looking at some of the races and what caught my eye. Starting off in the 120 at Newbury, where we were on Fortescue, who he's gone 1-2 in the run, travelled great. He really does lack that gear, doesn't he, to keep him involved. Highland Hunter skipped away from him. I just wanted one mistake from Highland Hunter in the final few fences. I'm like, just make one mistake. It doesn't have to be a serious mistake. Just go into it slow. And Fortescue, I was confident, would have caught him. Unfortunately for us, Highland Hunter jumped perfectly down that final straight, and Fortescue was not able to close him down. You know, you could suggest that it could end up working in his favour, in that he's not ridiculously handicapped in terms of if they can find a race that really plays to his strength. The concern would be, I don't know what that's going to be now. I think we might see him in the Scottish National next, Fortescue. The problem is the ground is not going to be probably soft enough for him, is it? He likes the real stamina sapping ground, and it'll be good to soft or something like that come Cheltenham. That's come Ayr for the Scottish champion hurdle. Yeah, he ran in the Grand National last year, finished 13th. That was off a mark of 1:43. He's not going to get in this year. The handicapper might drop him a pound or two for his effort at Newbury. And if he can sneak in at the bottom of the weights in the Scottish National, he could be interesting, but it'd be the ground would just really worry me, because I think he wants really soft ground, and I don't think he's going to get that at Ayr. So he would be tricky to place going forwards. Second race I want to talk about is the 142 at Kelso. Now, I do have one that I think ran a really good race here, and that horse kind of was bouncing back from some really poor efforts. That was Russian Ruler, who went off 28-1. And if we look on the exchanges, he went off 52.76 on the exchanges. But he did trade 12-1 in the run. And he travelled really nicely into it. That was over 2.5 miles. And Nicky seems convinced he wants this 2.5 mile. You can see that his last 3 runs, 2 over fences and 1 now over hurdles, have been over 2.5 mile. He's not actually won over 2.5 mile. His best run, you could probably say, is this one over 2.5 mile. Let's have a look what that was. But his last 2 wins were both over 2 mile. Does he actually need the 2.5 mile trip? You know, he travelled into it nicely at Kelso, and probably didn't stay the 2.5 mile trip. So I would be tempted to drop him back in trip, or find a race that's a really easy 2.5 mile, and there is one. This race at Kempton is over 2 mile 5, so it's actually, effectively, it's a bit further. However, this is a really easy 2 mile 5 at Kempton. I always nearly knock off half a mile for these races, so I'd be saying this is only about 2 mile 1, 2 mile 2 at tops. With that in mind, that's got to be where they go with him. The Reed Nicky Henderson's exclusive Unibet blog. It's Reed Nicky Henderson's exclusive Unibet blog. It's named after Nicky Henderson. I think I found another one last week for this race for Nicky Henderson. This one should also be turning up here. No point going to Cheltenham with Russian Ruler. You know, it's probably too soon, and he's not going to be good enough for that. But I definitely think there's enough time. I know it's only the extra day. What is it, 16th, and he ran on the 2nd. That'd be 2 weeks. That's plenty of time, in my opinion, to get over that effort at Kelso. It wasn't on bottomless going, so it's not likely to have taken a huge amount out. And Brian Hughes gives horses kind of interesting rides in that I don't think he does a lot when his chance is gone. And when he didn't think there was anything, you know, worth persevering with on Russian Ruler, he gives up quite quickly. And I've always thought that about Brian Hughes. And yeah, I would be quite keen to see Russian Ruler stick over hurdles and into this handicap. But, you know, he was rated 122. If he might not even get in. But rated 122, I think the handicap will drop him another couple of pounds. He is well handicapped, therefore he would be off 120. I'm pretty confident of that. If he run off 120, he would be well handicapped. It's all about finding a race for him that he could win. Moving on to the 155, there wasn't a lot from this race. I'm pleased we didn't go for Can Do Kid in the end, because we would have had another second. We had second, obviously, earlier with Fortescue. There is another one that we're going to talk about later on in this video. Can Do Kid, I thought he did everything right, just was beaten by a horse who was also well handicapped. We'd previously selected Heltenham. A couple of times he hadn't run. I think we back him at Kempton? No, I reckon it was Aintree maybe, when he went off the 5-2 favourite and disappointed for us back in third. But none of those are the ones that I'm interested in. The horse that I'm most interested in here was purely getting round, wasn't he? Was Bill Baxter. Ran off 135 here. Handicapper's going to drop him £2, isn't he, for finishing 6th? He'd be down to 133. What mark did he win the Topham off last year? 133. I think it's, you know, a well executed plan again from the Twiston Davis with Bill Baxter. It is Twiston Davis. No, Warren Greytrick, sorry. With Bill Baxter. I'd be pretty confident that we're going to see him next time in the Topham at the Aintree Festival. And you would imagine he would go very close. Moving on to the 205. Now this one, 205 at Doncaster. Go back and watch the ride from Bryony Frost on our coupe. So we was on our coupe here, and really interesting. So I'm just reading the report. Trainer's rep could offer no explanation for the poor form shown, other than the gelding may not have been suited by the step up in trip from 2 mile 3 to 3 mile on a slower surface on this occasion, with the ground officially being described as good to soft in places. It was obviously getting softer with the rain that came down, and by the end of the day it was really quite soft. You saw that in the Grimthorpe Chase. Only 2 ended up finishing, and I don't think the trip did so, but I don't also think it was a very good ride. As in, Bryony didn't ask for any effort whatsoever. It looked very soft from Bryony Frost. She didn't even really ask it to, you know, is there anything left? It was literally, you know, maybe she can feel that the horse has got nothing left. I'm not so sure, and I'd like to have seen a bit of an effort from her on our coupe. But it'd be interesting to see if the handicapper drops our coupe £1 or 2 for that run, and then they drop back in trip. If they drop back in trip, you know, even off 120, 2.5 mile, off 120, in a race that maybe isn't a top class feature handicap, a similar type of race as what he ran in here, but over 2.5 mile, and I'd be all over our coupe again. I thought this was an effort that you just completely write off, because there was no effort. There was no effort, to be honest. I thought it was a very poor ride. Moving on to the 3 o'clock. Another poor ride, to be honest. I thought... who was it? It was Paul O'Brien that gave this one a terrible ride. Brentford Hope. Tried to win it cosily. Travelled beautifully behind the winner. Made a mistake at the last and didn't pick up in time. That's what happens when you don't try and... You know, they were trying to win this race cosily and get £3, instead of winning it comfortably and getting 8, which I totally understand in a way. Just go to the front, get in front at the last, and then don't ask for much of an effort. Rather than the way they did it, where they were trying to win it on the bridle. It didn't work. Again, it might end up working in their favour, in that they might end up in the Scottish Champion Hurdle. 134, Rabal won it last year. It's decent prize money. The handicapper's unlikely to move him too much after his second. If he'd won, granted they might have put him up £6 for winning it. They're not going to. Still might go up 2 maybe for travelling so well. And I would like to see Brentford Hope in the Scottish Champion Hurdle, and a future handicap still Brentford Hope. Moving on to the 325 at Kelso. I just don't understand trainers or owners Whichever one, whoever's doing this, I don't understand it. So we've had Stumptown win earlier this season at Cheltenham, ruined the Kim Muir mark, won't get in there, we'll have to try and win the Ultima now. That isn't guaranteed. We've had, who was the second one? Phlegmatic, went to Kempton, won a handicap, went up £3 for winning a nothing handicap, went up £3 and is now... then went to Kempton for the feature race, the 85 grand Coral Trophy, finished third. Take those £3 off, probably wins the race. Why did they try and win the race previously at Kempton and go up £3? And we've got another one here, Thunder Rock, beautifully handicapped off 146 as soon as he goes over 3 mile in a handicap. That's what I've been saying. The Ultima has to be the Ultima, has to be the Ultima for the owners that sponsor the Ultima. They came to this race, they've won it readily. They have beaten a horse rated £8 higher, giving £4, so effectively £12 wrong, with Manila Drama, and they've beaten that horse readily. Elvis Mail, they were given they were £3 wrong with. £3? They were £1 higher, yeah, £3 wrong with. I Right, they were £12 wrong with. No, £10 wrong with, sorry. And Monbeg Genius, they were £5 wrong with. Beaten all of those horses off bad terms, to win 28 grand. What on earth are they going to do with that horse now? They're going to have to they're going to go to the bowl at Aintree, aren't they? The Grade 1. I don't think that horse is going to be good enough for the Grade 1 at Aintree. But could have won the Ultima at Cheltenham, off the mark of 146, would have got in, would have looked very, very well handicapped. And clearly the 3 mile trip is what the horse needed. And he'd had one run over 3 mile before that. And that was when running in the the Broadway Novices, the 3 mile novice chase last season when finishing 6th at Cheltenham. He'd then come back out 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5. I've been calling out for 3 mile. Doesn't go there until running in a race where they are wrong at the weights and still readily wins, demonstrating how well handicapped they were off 146. This is just ridiculous. Trainers and owners just don't understand how you can then moan about prize money when you're not targeting your well handicapped horses at the right races, or looking after a horse that is well handicapped and making sure they're in a bigger race for more prize money, rather than picking up silly amounts. I know 28 grand is 28 grand, but when you can win whatever it is for the Ultima more, and it's your race, why would you not have gone there? Don't understand it at all. And he's going to go up, I think he's going to go up £10, £12 for that, to be honest. Because of how well he's beaten horses that he was so wrong at the weights with. Anyway, the final horse that I want to talk about was another one of ours that finished second. Some Scope. Travelled really well. Given a very, very confident ride from Gavin Sheehan. And to be honest, I actually thought he gave him a good ride. I know Does He Know held him off. He just found more from the front. Whereas Some Scope still ran a huge race. Everything else pulled up. They were the only two that finished. I don't think it was actually a poor ride from Gavin Sheehan. I just think it was potentially a very good ride from David Bass from the front on Does He Know. Some Scope's likely to go up slightly in the handicap. I think he'll go up £3 or £4 for that, which will annoy connections, I'm sure. I do think he'll stay a bit further again, and I think they know that, and I think they're slowly working up in trip and up in class. And I wonder whether this race, the Bet365 Gold Cup, is their end of season target with him. His 2 wins had actually come on good to soft and good, although I don't think the ground would have been against him, this soft ground. He definitely likes this ground as well. So I think he's kind of versatile with the ground as well. So he's definitely one I'm interested in going forward as well still. And that Bet365 Gold Cup at the end of the season does look an ideal race for him. I want to talk about one more. Whoops. This one here. Won by Cracking Rhapsody, with Sky Cutter finishing third. I was so gutted. Wow. Dan Skelton would have won this with Fave Wife he'd ran. He's now finished the last 4 years. Dan Skelton's had a runner in the More Battle Hurdle. He's trying to win the bonuses, but he didn't try this year because Sky Cutter didn't have an entry. But he's trying to win the bonuses. 4 years ago, he ran Favois, finished third. 3 years ago, he ran Favois, finished third. 2 years ago, he ran L'Eau de Sud, finished third. This year, he ran Sky Cutter, finished third. The only thing you could potentially say, keep an eye out for Sky Cutter going forward. They obviously believe it's a better horse than what he's currently shown, in the fact that they ran Favois twice in it. He ended up having won a Cheltenham Festival race now. L'Eau de Sud, they ran in it. He then went to the Greatwood Hurdle, and then he went to the Betfair Hurdle, where he eventually showed his true form, finishing second, and I think he'll run a big race in the county. Sky Cutter could be one. Maybe they save him, this horse, for Aintree, and keep an eye out for those 2 mile handicaps for Sky Cutter. I think he's quite nicely handicapped still. But they would have won it with Favois if they'd ran him, and unfortunately they didn't. So there's just a few horses to keep your eye on going forward. Fortescue might go to the Scottish National. I don't know whether I'd be that keen on him still. Russian Ruler I'd definitely be keen on if he went to Kempton for this 2 mile 5 handicap hurdle. Bill Baxter you've got to look at when he goes back for the Topham. Arcoob when he drops back in trip, 2.5 mile. Maybe if he doesn't take on, doesn't go to Aintree, for example, for the 2.5, and they find something else, Plumpton, Exeter, Newbury, something like that. There will be a race for Arcoob, but over 2.5. Brentford Hope potential could go to the Scottish Champion Hurdle now. Wasn't given a very good ride. Thunder Rock, what have they done with him? They've messed up his handicap mark. And keep an eye on Sky Cutter going forward. I think the Skeltons think he's well handicapped, and that's why they ran him in the More Battle Hurdle.